I realized that that I wasn't happy. That feeling that had been kind of repressed and pushed down. I allowed it to come out and acknowledge the reality of really where I was at in my life, by listening to those around me that I trusted. And I decided to make some changes.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld.
Hey guys, Ben here from Within the podcast. I have a good buddy of mine, Chris, on the show today. We are connecting on Zoom because he is in Indonesia on his catamaran. Is that what it is? A boat? What do you call that thing? Yeah. So he sold a business. Him and his girl sold their businesses, jumped on a catamaran. It's been 4 years. He's been sailing around the world. And so we are going to talk to him. We've got a lot of good history. Chris has been pivotal to some of the changes in my life I've made. He's someone I will cherish for a long time. And I'm so pumped that we are on the call. People are going to get a lot out of this. So thanks, Chris, for coming. Why don't you tell me a little bit about where you're at right now?
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me here. Well, quite literally, I'm sitting on my boat in a little harbor here in a town called Sorong in Indonesia. And we just spent the last 5 months or so, we basically spent since April this year sailing from New Zealand through the South Pacific and up here to Indonesia. So it's about almost 8,000 miles we sailed since April, through some of the coolest places that I've ever been and some of the most remote places in the world. It was a really unbelievable experience. So
we were just talking before we started recording about if we jumped into each other's lives right now. Chris previously was a very driven sales business kind of mindset. He's chasing after real estate, building his portfolio, raising money. And I just feel like I'd like to hear a little bit about what the heck happened. Tell me about where you came from, Chris. And let's start there. We got lots to dig into.
I think the best way to frame that is, I guess it was almost four years ago now. I gave it a talk at an event that was put on by a good friend of both of ours, Philip, who we've both done a lot of personal growth work with and stuff. He has an event called One Last Talk, and I gave a talk called Everything is Awesome Not. And that is a really good frame for basically describing the way my life was at that time. On the outside, everything looked great. I was making a good amount of money. I was running a business. The business was doing well, but I had a lot of material wealth around me. But on the inside, everything was not great. On the inside, I was quite literally dying. I was not happy. I was struggling to find meaning in my life, just struggling basically every day. And through this process really of creating this talk and giving this talk and working with Ben in the group that I was in and other people in that group, I realized that that I wasn't happy. That feeling that had been kind of repressed and pushed down, I allowed it to come out and acknowledge the reality of really where I was at in my life, by listening to those around me that I trusted. And I decided to make some changes. So my life today is essentially, I guess, the culmination of a number of those changes that I made. And there wasn't really any one big change other than, I guess, the decision to buy this boat. That was probably the biggest of the changes, which was a pretty big change. But to get to that point, it was just a series of small changes. It was moving where I had been living, and it was deciding to sell my business, deciding to transition other things in my life, focus on different things. I decided to stop drinking.
It's funny looking back, Chris, because it's funny. I was with you on every one of those steps. And it was like, it's funny because I'm thinking how the audience is going to listen and be like, oh yeah, he just sold his business. Yeah, that's good. I'm like, that was like 3 grinding years of almost selling it, kind of selling part of it, changing it a bit. No, I'm good at this part. I remember, man, like, and I feel the same way in so many levels that we've seen my own journey as well. But it's like, it's cool to just want to just lay it on the table, because it's like, just even selling your business. Yeah, I sold my business. It's like the
That's
novel,
true.
the novel before that line. That's the last line. The last page in that book was, yeah, I sold my business.
Yeah.
I remember that was very difficult for you. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
just wanted to. You probably 4 years, man. You're probably living on a boat. I don't know, like, I don't know what you're doing, surfing and eating fish all the time. You probably forgot.
No, it's a good reminder. I mean, looking back, the changes look small, but to make the change is a lot of effort.
Huge.
Effort in the sense it just requires digging deep and looking at really what I wanted. You know, it was
Yeah.
looking back and being like,
Yeah.
what do I really want here? And thinking about it now, looking back at the time, I didn't know. You know,
And
and
that
that
was
was
the
the big,
battle,
that was the
right?
struggle.
That was,
Yeah, that was
because
the
then what are you
struggle.
going to do? Just sell your business? Like, I
Yeah.
know that feeling, you
Yeah.
know?
Then what's next? Yeah. Oh, why am I getting? What's next? If I do this, then what's next? Why?
Yeah, I
Why
don't
would I do
know.
this? This thing is
Yeah.
sitting here making me a good amount of money, and why get
Doesn't
rid
make
of it?
sense.
Yeah.
It's not that
Yeah.
hard, except you're dying in the inside. Like, I think,
Yeah.
what do you think, Chris? Like, we both understand this. We both gone from grind and doing it. I'm still grinding now, but it's different. But when I'm still in the world of business and all that. But the thing is, what was I going to say here? Is that's what happens. You know, your brain. It's called a brain fart. Just 1 second. That's what I forgot what I was going to say, but that's cool. That's what this pod's. We're keeping it real here, folks. You know, that's what we do. I can't remember what the heck we're freaking talking about. So we're just going to jump back in. You got to save me here, Chris. You're not going to sit there and look at
Okay.
me like that.
Well, yeah, no,
My
it was
total brain. It's been a long day, I guess. Jeez. I don't know.
the challenge was not knowing, and that's what I was saying. The challenge was
Yeah.
not knowing, and making the decision not knowing, and then allowing what was going to come, and
Mhm.
not filling the space. You know, that was kind of the thing. It was, I think,
Totally.
if I could have sold the business and then jumped into another business right away, and I wouldn't be here where I am. You know,
It's crazy,
I'd be
man.
somewhere else, but yeah, I
So
think
when
that
you said a question that says, you know, you asked yourself, what do I want? Like, I'm just thinking, if we were to give someone some advice right now, like right now at this spot, like, how does someone figure that out, Chris? I know you and I both spent many hours asking that question. I still ask it today. What's the advice you could give someone that's listening to figure out what they want?
yeah, I think the only way to know what you want, I believe, is to try something. That's the only way. But to get to the point of trying something, I mean, you can read books all day long around, you know, oh, whatever it is you think you want to be a. Give me something. You think you want to be a realtor or something, you know, you can read books all day long about being a realtor, what it's like to be a realtor, but you're never going to know what it's actually like or whether you like it unless you try it yourself and you try it on and you're like, does this actually work for me? So, but I think at least what I struggle with, and I still struggle with this, is how do you decide, yes, I want to try this on? You know, how do you get to the point of, yeah, I'm actually going to try this on, because that requires change. To actually decide, hey, I'm going to try this on, it requires you to go and make specific changes in your life to create the space to allow that new thing in. And I think that's
Interesting.
what
So
people struggle with.
do you think creating space is first, or
Yeah, it has
is
to be
it?
first.
It is.
Yeah.
So that seems crazy for people listening. I'm thinking, like, just go make a change, create space without a plan. And you know, planners are planners, man. They like that plan, and you know, and it's like like creating space will lead you to figuring out what you want.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think that the way that we are wired is we fill up our lives with stuff. Stuff and activities and whatever you want to call it. Like including me now. I mean, I'm an amazing example of this. Like I walked away from an extremely busy life in a city, running a business, doing that, and now I'm on a boat, living again what on the outside looks like I have all the space and all the time in the world. But
Mm.
it's amazing how full my life is here and how little space I have for other things that I think I might want to do. You know, for example, we were just talking about
Mm.
this before. I want to start a business again, but right now there's no space. I need to make some changes. I need to make some decisions. Okay, yeah, we need to stay in one spot for more than like 6 weeks.
Mm.
Like that's the only way that's going to happen. So, you know, we're wired to just fill our lives up with all this stuff. So you have to,
Mm.
the first place you have to start is removing stuff from your life. You have to say, okay, no, this doesn't work for me anymore. So the place to start is really looking at, okay, what in your life works for you and what in your life doesn't work for you, and get rid of the stuff that doesn't work for you. And
Including
that's
people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when I say stuff, it's like, it's not material things. It's activities,
Mm.
habits, people. Um, and the stuff that I've learned is the stuff that I need to get rid of is not necessarily the stuff that I actually want to get rid of.
Yeah, no doubt. It's cool to
Yeah.
hear you talk about this, Chris, because sitting you on a boat, you imagine, yeah, like when I introduce you, yeah, I sold his business. Like we could write the best bio. People would love your social media post. They would like, we could make a great landing page and people sign up to learn the tips of how to quit your business. And then you can live on a boat and just live this amazing retirement. You might as well just say we're on a beach. You did it. Like you've arrived according to the North American style. And is that you have now arrived at what every freaking retirement minded person wants, is that I'm independently wealthy to a point where I can afford my life. Okay. And I can go anywhere I want, whenever I want. I live on a boat. I'm in the ocean. I have the most beautiful sunsets every night and all these things. And you're telling me your life is full in a different way. Like it's like really cool to talk to you, Chris, because how many people are going after the life that you're living? Like almost
Yeah.
who's traditional retirement? We're going to
No,
travel.
I hear it all the time. People tell me that they say, Chris, you're living the dream. And I'm
But
like,
but what's so crazy is then what are we doing? Like if we're
yeah,
gonna go to this, and sure it's great. You can't deny it's pretty freaking cool. But there's a whole nother world. It's almost like you filled up your space again. Now you want to.
yeah.
It's almost like like people are living to have what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like what you're explaining is like, no, I filled my whole space up. I can fill my space here too.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, it's not the
so
answer. Yeah,
it's not the
not
answer.
the answer.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
So why
no,
is it
it's
not
not
the
the answer.
answer? Why not?
Because I mean, I believe the answer is growth. The answer is continuing
Mm.
to grow as an individual. You know, continuing to grow personally. That's the answer. And when you fill up your space, and you're not, when your space is full, and you're not questioning and constantly looking at what you think you want in your space, but you don't really need in your space, then your space becomes full, and you're not growing anymore. And so, you know, that's the problem with answers, because answers, when you think you have an answer, or you think you're
Mm.
at an answer, you stop growing, because that's the end of the road. Where do you
It's
go
done.
from the answer? Yeah. So
So what do? You have a question?
do I have a question?
No. Like you're saying the answer's not the way.
Ah,
So you
yeah.
just leave it with a question
Well, yeah,
or
yeah,
what?
exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, I think that's natural as well, though, to work towards a goal and work towards an answer. But with the you know, with the understanding or the openness that the answer is not the end. You know, it's like not being
Yeah.
attached to that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I I've struggled with that, because for a long time, I was attached, and I have been attached to the idea that this was also the answer for me. It was something I really wanted for a really long
Yeah.
time. And so to see beyond sailing around with my family and all these beautiful places, as you so eloquently put it, um, is to see beyond that was very difficult. You know, it was
Interesting.
challenging. So
Interesting.
I think, yeah, it's being open to more,
At
really,
all
I
times.
guess, is, yeah, at all
Mm.
times, just being open to more and other possibilities and other ways of doing things.
So
Uh,
now that you've done this, so you've had this vision. I remember for a long time, this vision for you was to be on this boat because you're like a friggin' waterman, deep sea diver. I remember you training, what do they call free divers with free diving in Hawaii. Like, it's so cool. Like, that you're like meant for the water, right? I saw you going to a riptide for fun in Mexico. They're going to take this out. Where it goes. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, don't worry. Chris knows what he's doing. But okay, so let's think about this. You've had this vision to be on this boat. It's been 4 years. What's the next growth vision? Like it's like, you see what I mean? Like, you got there. Now, what in the last 4 years has been percolating in you? What's the next move? What's the growth that you're
From
looking
here.
at? Yeah, from there.
Yeah. I mean, what's the real, what's percolating in me is something I think that's actually always been percolating in me as well. It's new, but it's old,
Yep.
and it's new because it has this new experience behind it. And it's giving back. It's creating a business again, but it's creating a business from not the same way I created my old business. It's creating a business where, the core of that business is to help people, to help people. And in a way, I want to combine a number of things. It's to help people with their businesses, their challenges in their lives, but to also help them and show them, share with them in a way the experiences that I've had, to show them that, hey, there's this whole other side of life that we don't see in the Western world. In the Western world, we're so focused on building our businesses and on, making money and on buying the next cool thing. And, I spent 5 months basically living in communities where if you went to shore in one of these communities with a little tool, like a little wood chisel, like a wood chisel, like with a handle and a piece of metal on it, and you gave that to a guy in that community, that would be his prized possession for the next 20 years.
Crazy.
Like, that's how little these places have. You go and give them a snorkeling mask and a pair of fins, they'll keep them for 15 years. Like, they have nothing, but they're the nicest, most kind-hearted, open, warm people that I've ever met. We don't know these people. You walk onto the beach and they're like, they like pick up our kids. They're running around with our kids, like, showing them stuff. Their kids are playing with our kids. They're inviting us over for dinner. They don't even know us.
Crazy.
It's just like,
crazy.
So it's this, I guess it's this sense of community, right? It's like that, the sense of community, and that, there's more to life than just building something for the sake of building it to make a few bucks.
Yeah. I love it, man. You impacted my life one day. I remember sitting there in Tofino, and it was kind of crazy. So this is like, what, 5 years ago, at least, I think 6.
Yeah. In Tofino. Yeah. 5 or 6 years.
It was before it was the summit when remember we spoke at, we spoke at the summit, right? It's called the One Last Talk now, but it was the first one. But I remember struggling bad with my relationship at home, and it was not good. I was just not connected to myself. My marriage was getting tough. My kids weren't into me. And I remember the question. I remember one time they're like, "Oh, Ben, you got a cold," because I had lost my voice, and that was from yelling and fighting. And I didn't had that happen, but it was just one of those times where it kind of put me on it really exposed the intensity of how our relationship was. That in that time, it was a lot of fighting. And I remember then you challenged me. Do you remember this? You probably remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I remember you saying, because you say, what about your kids? What about your kids when you're yelling, or when you are fighting with your wife, or you're like that? And then the question was, what is the safety of your kids more important than your relationship with your wife? And I was so insecure even 6 years ago about, now that you see it, right? You see it later, but I looked at it and I'm like, man, like I felt like the only way I could find confidence was in that relationship. I was so tied to that relationship that to the point where I'd forget my kids were there. And you had said, is the safety of your kids more important than your wife? And I said, no. And that was like that there, man, it crushed me. It laid, like, it was like forever. That started one of the most toughest years I've had in a long time, but it was what really woke me up to really realize that I can't hold on to my wife anymore because it's actually causing a lot more pain holding on to that relationship. And you were the one who kind of brought that up. And I was very I didn't know. She was the first person to really love me. Like this coming from such abuse and such, like, I just found this relationship, but then I would control the living crap out of it because I was scared to lose it. And that's when I realized I need to let my wife go, which was a massive thing. And then I started connecting back with my kids. Like today they run to the door, daddy. My wife and I are in amazing shape right now. And it's like transition, but that was the day. And I really thank you for that, Chris. I never will ever forget that. It was just a simple question you asked me that just cut me right down in a good way.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate
You're
that.
most welcome, man. I mean, it's unbelievable what you've done with it. Like yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's something that now for the rest of my life I'm going to do. It's cool because I do that with other people now. And it's the most coolest thing in the world. And I know you're going to do the same thing, and you probably do already from the boat at some level, is that like I take people away and I get to sit there and work on their lives the way that we did that process. And, and asking those questions to other people and bringing them to a place of reality and healing. And it's crazy how it all ties into success. I don't want to cheapen it with that word, but it's weird how that you work on yourself, and it just literally, you don't have to worry about the business side of it as much as you have to, like once you're out of the way, it just flows. It's not easy all the time, but yeah. And it's cool to be able to give back. So in one way you've affected me in that way, as I'm affecting now. I'm helping people all the time, like in these retreats and working with people. And I'll do this for the rest of my life. That's what I'll do forever, in one way or the other. Just the experiencing that kind of breakthrough and that intensity of healing, and seeing that maybe the people that have been written off, there's a lot of hope for these guys. There's a lot of hope for guys that are not having good relationships. There's so much hope, and the side effect is such wealth in so many different prosperous levels in relationship and money and all these different things comes from that. So yeah.
And healing is what it is. I that's another thing I've been sitting with recently, is this concept of healing. And because I used to think that healing meant that you to heal something meant that you had to be broken in some way to then be healed.
Yeah, man, it totally does. Hey, because when you say, hey, we want some healing, what the fuck's wrong with you? I gotta, I could see that reaction. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and I've come to realize that that's not it at all. Like you can be perfectly fine, normal, and most of us are perfectly fine, normal human beings, but we still need healing. There's many levels of healing, and you can heal a little bit and then heal a little bit more. And it's not about being broken at all. It's just about growing. It's what it is.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool, man. Yeah. So tell me this, 4 years on the boat, what have you learned? We got 3 minutes on this question. If you had to just, there's a lot you've learned, obviously, but if there was something that you got 2 or 3 minutes, and it's like, if you had to drop a thing, might not be the ultimate one, or just whatever, but what have you?
The very first thing that comes to my mind is to value what I have. And that's not, I don't mean that in necessarily a material sense, but it definitely has a material connotation to it, or a material element to it. Like because just to experience these places where people literally have nothing, there's this whole sense of appreciation for what I have, and not just in a material sense, like knowledge, education, the background that I come from, where I've been raised. It's like the way that I see the world, the opportunities that I have to explore the world. These people on these islands are never going anywhere.
Ever.
99% of them are never going. They're never going to leave this like 4 mile square wide island. Crazy. For their entire life. They won't leave, because there's no way for them to leave. And I was sitting on the back of it. This is one of the coolest experiences I've had recently. I was sitting on the back of our boat, just sitting on the deck, and a guy came by in his canoe. So there's no, in these places, there's no power boats. There's nothing. They have little canoes that they literally chop down a tree, and they carve out the interior of the tree, and they make a little literally dugout canoe. And in some places they have masts, they get another piece of wood, and then they find some old piece of fabric, and they sail the canoes. Anyway, this guy, older guy, he must have been like let's say he was like maybe mid 60s. He came by, and there's people coming by usually quite frequently in certain spots, but this guy came by and he's like, he wanted to trade stuff, and then he wanted books. And I started chatting with him about the books that he wanted, and he wanted history books. And you'll probably remember, like, I'm a big fan of history. It's
big time,
something.
yeah.
And so I got chatting with this guy, and ended up inviting him on the boat, and we were just sitting on the back of the boat, and we probably sat there for 2 hours, him just asking me questions
About the world.
about the world. Yeah, about history, about the world.
You were Google.
Yeah, well, in a way, but it was also because it was my perspective on the world, because a lot of the things that he asked me, he knew a little bit about them. He knew some facts, but he didn't have any real context for those facts. He'd never been to these places. He'd read about them in some books. He'd read some facts, but there was no context for it. Or the context, there wasn't no context, but the context that he had was really limited from this island that he was on, right?
Yeah.
So, and it was just like, this guy was extremely intelligent. You could tell just by talking to him, but he was incredibly intelligent, incredibly empathetic. Like his level of empathy was unbelievable. And in that moment, it was like, oh my God, like, what an amazing life and opportunity I have. And it just made me appreciate what I have, because I'm like, this guy, had he been anywhere else in the world other than this country and this island, any, other westernized country, he's extremely intelligent. He probably he could be a CEO of a company, but
Crazy, hey?
It's just,
it's
really weird. Yeah. Those types of experiences are real, like, mind benders for me. They really are, like, you start to think about it, and you're like, oh man, this one's
yeah. Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Have you had any scares on your boat? Like, have you had any close calls?
We hit a reef once, which was a bit scary, but it wasn't that bad. We were able to get the boat out of the water and get it fixed. But yeah, no, I mean, there's like, I don't know, it's like anything, like, sometimes there's bad weather, and the bad weather is a little bit scary, but you just kind of do the stuff, you got to do, and to keep it safe. Like, I'm sailing with my 3-year-old now. Mia's 3 on board. So, we try and stay as safe as possible. Right. So one of the other super cool things, and I would say is something that has come actually really out of this trip for me, that I've come to appreciate or learn, is, again, it falls in line with the value thing, but it would be to value community. I think before I did value, it's not like I didn't value community, but going through this experience, I have a whole newfound value for community, and for close relationships with people, because being on a boat can be very isolating. There's a couple ways to do it, but yeah, we spent the first year and a half basically sailing around by ourselves, and would run into boats here and there. And that was quite isolating. You spend that much time on your own, even though you have your family, it's harder to reach out. And so this last year, we've actually sailed, we sailed with one other boat, and now there's 2 of us that are sailing kind of in a fleet, if you will.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. They're boats that have kids on them as well. And so between the 3 boats, there's 6 kids right now. And we head off together and sail kind of close by, so we can talk to each other on the radio, and then when we get to the anchorage, we anchor near each other, and so they've come to basically be like extended family. You
Crazy.
spend, if you spend every day we're basically spending every day, they're on their own boat, but you see them every day for a year, you get quite close with somebody.
Wow.
So that's been, that's been
What's
really nice.
What's your diet like, Chris? Do you just eat fish?
I like eating fish.
Thank goodness, because that'd be bad.
I like catching fish too. We eat quite a bit of fish when we catch it. You don't always catch fish. I spearfish, and we fish when we sail, like we troll, so we can catch fish both ways. We eat local is the best way to put it. I mean, that's
cool.
you're really I guess you're not forced to do this. We know some families that are on boats that they really focus on like finding stores in certain places where they can buy Western food and like only eat steak and stuff. And we don't do that. We just said wherever we are, we're going to eat what we eat. And that also allows us to then stay out in these outer islands longer, because well, just when you go away, that's your limiting factor is food
Supplies.
Well, basically just food and fuel.
Okay.
Because we can make water on the boat. So, that's not a problem, but food, you buy some dry goods and your fresh stuff runs out in a week to 10 days. So then when you're in these villages, you show up to the village and you usually have villagers that will come out in canoes with whatever they grow, because all these villages are, there's no stores. They can't go buy anything. So they're basically sustenance farming. So they just, every one of these villages, they have either near the village on the same island or on another island, like a mile or two away, that they can go in their canoe. That will be where all their little, they call them gardens. They're not really farms, they're gardens.
Yeah.
And they grow like papayas and pineapples and bananas and
do they sell it to sailors?
They don't sell it because money is really of no value to them.
Oh wow.
They can't go spend it anywhere. So it's not of no value. They don't mind money, but they can't, and they'll save money and then eventually spend it on like one really big purchase. When somebody does get off the island and goes somewhere else, that person will bring back all kinds of stuff. But they'll trade. So
yeah, okay. What do they look for then? Like, what are they looking for?
Yeah, they'll trade. Things of value to them are things they can't make. So, like for example, chisels. And they use the chisels to make
tools.
Their canoes. Yeah, tools. Yeah, tools. Stuff. So stuff they can't make. But
do you buy some stuff every time you head out and just be like, I gotta help these guys out and just load them up?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Actually, one of the best things that you can give, and this was really strange when we figured this out, but a T-shirt, because they can't buy clothes. So you go to these places and you go and their clothes are like, they probably been wearing the same clothes for 4 years, like, and they wear them all the time. Yeah. And they wear them in the ocean, out of the ocean, and so you give somebody a new T-shirt, and
wow,
it's like it's amazing. Like you see the look in this person's eyes when you've given them a T-shirt, and they're just like they want to hug you, because you've given them a T-shirt. So stuff like that, So when we're in a major city, we'll go and like we bought, what was it, like 20 kilos of clothes in this bag. Like they sell, it's weird, in the major centers they sell, so they've used clothes and they come from like Australia or New Zealand, and then they vacuum pack them in a bag and sell them by weight. And so you just buy a bag
and you just handed them the bag. Got you something. Probably just
you buy 20 kilos of clothes and then you cut the bag open and then hand out things like as you go places. So, but yeah,
and then do you trade that and you get food?
Yeah, they bring you food. Yeah, they bring you food, or they'll go swim, or they'll go diving and get you lobsters. Yeah, or like.
Do they speak what do they speak for language?
So we were super lucky in all the South Pacific Islands. Most of them speak English.
Oh, great.
But they have a local dialect. So it's the craziest thing. Every island you go to speaks a different local dialect. So there's no
fluency.
Common. Yeah, there's English, and then there's usually a common language, but that common language is like Pidgin. Pidgin is like basically a very primitive form of English. And then there's the local dialect in whatever little island you're in. So yeah,
I'm just watching us here we're recording this, and all I keep thinking about is how freaking tanned you are. It's winter in Canada, and I'm looking at myself in this picture, and I'm like, I am a freaking ghost. Like, I'm like trying to change the lighting so I don't look like a light bulb against her. Like, you got the best tan, hands down. This is what you'd look like if you moved to Canada, man. You're
I was
bald
going to
head.
say something when we first got on the call, but then I decided not to.
You got whiter. How do you get whiter? So hey, I also had on another topic other than me being ridiculously white right now.
Before you start that, hold
Yeah,
that
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
add one more thing
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
for sure.
things that I value? And that would be my family. Like I've really come to appreciate spending time with my family. You know, when you spend basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your family, you learn really fast
Wow.
to appreciate them, or it's not going to work. Because and
Jeez.
they're in the boating community. There's a saying that it's like, you know, they call this type of lifestyle the cruising lifestyle. You go cruising in a boat. That they say, you know, cruising is either a marriage maker or a marriage breaker.
Oh yeah.
Because it's, you know, you go, and a lot of couples will go sailing. And if you think about it, you know, in Western life, maybe both couples are working. So how much time are they
hours here and there? Yeah.
really spending together, right?
Yeah.
And then you go from spending 2-3 hours a day together to spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the relationship dynamic changes significantly. So that's something that actually I think I'm quite proud of.
That's cool, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, the connection we have as a family.
And it's Mia, right? Your daughter is 3. She's 3. You've been sailing for 4 years, right? You said.
Yeah.
He's never lived anywhere else other than the boat. Wow.
Yeah, we bought the boat.
What a story to start her life.
Yeah.
I do have a I was talking to a guy. You actually owe him some money. And he heard that I was going to be on the show, and he says, can you ask Chris about the $20 I gave him? Because he sold me some trip to the concentration camp, to Auschwitz. And so he's wondering if he's still going to be on the trip, or if he's can just get his $20 back, because he's been waiting. And the man is Philip McKernan. He did say he owed him some money. So I don't know if it's what's going on. But why don't you tell me a little bit about that situation? What is you have
trip is coming.
Okay,
the
good.
trip is coming.
This is
it's
something.
Coming.
This is our shared mentor. We've shared for years. He pulls it out of you. What you the core of your soul of what you want to do, and then is what we're most scared of, and all this crazy stuff. And one was what, Chris?
So I want to take a group of people to Auschwitz and go through the camp at Auschwitz, but and not just to go and to see what happened there, because I'm a big believer that we learn from our past. You know, like there's so much we can learn from our past, both on an individual level, so as individuals looking at our own past, but also at human history. You know, what's happened in human history, and I believe that, you know, the Holocaust and genocide in general, it can teach us a lot about humans, who we are, how we work, how we function, and the shadow side of things that we don't necessarily want to look at.
Like if someone was to want to join you on this trip that you're going to be doing, you've already got one sold with Philip.
Yeah.
So
one sold. Yeah.
So how do people get on this trip, Chris?
The way to get on the trip right now would be to send me an email and then pre-book your ticket.
What's your email?
My email is it's cbiasutt@gmail.com. That's the only email I'm working on right now.
He may not talk to you in 4 months, but he will get it. No,
I will get it.
Yeah. What's the name of your it's not your podcast, your YouTube channel? Like, will you call it the Family Venture or something? Or what was it again?
Well, no, YouTube channel is my name. So it's Chris Biasutti. Cool. Yeah. You just search Chris Biasutti.
We'll throw a link up there, Chris. Just send me all the links. Yeah. Okay. So you know what? Well, let's,
so you can contact me through YouTube. That trip is going to happen sometime. Let's say, I haven't picked the exact dates. Well, as soon as we're planning to be back on land in Bali later this year. So as soon as we get back to land, I'm going to start planning the logistics around making the trip happen. Let's say sometime next year. Sometime late
2021.
Yeah,
So tell
2021.
me just really quickly, what is this trip going to be? Just the
Yeah.
factual steps, details. What are you going to do? I know you've thought of this.
Yeah. Okay.
You probably haven't. When's the
So
last time we talked about this?
we were sitting in Santa Monica
Oh
at
my
a
goodness.
restaurant, you, me, and Lori.
Wow. Let's talk about it again. We got around. I got 5 more minutes. I got my kids. I'm hockey tonight. I'm a head coach. I got to go do practice, and I got my wife telling me I got to pick them up, and that's what happens. That's real life. So I got 5 minutes, Chris, to
Okay.
close
Okay.
it up. But I want to hear about what is this thing? It always fascinated me, to be totally honest. I always fascinated me. Something I would like to go to as well.
Cool. Yeah. So the basic overview of the trip is we're going to go fly to Germany, and then get on a train from Germany and take the train to Krakow in Poland. Spend some time in Krakow. Krakow is basically the city closest to Auschwitz, where the concentration camp was, and then we will go basically take a train or a car to Auschwitz, which is a concentration camp where they murdered the Jews in the Second World War. But then we'll go and take a tour of Auschwitz and Birkenau. So there's two camps there. There's Auschwitz, which is the concentration camp. Birkenau is the extermination camp. And then the plan is to stay for one night, actually in Auschwitz. And then so tour Auschwitz the first day, stay for one night, then go tour Birkenau. And then take the train back to Germany and fly out. So in total, yeah.
Would you do like a debrief kind of time, or
Yeah. So
personal
there would
work?
exactly. Yeah. So the idea would be to come into Auschwitz, spend a day in Auschwitz, then do, in that evening, do a bit of a debrief. And then the next morning, do like a morning of kind of personal work, reflection on what we saw the day before. Then go to Birkenau, do the rest of the day in Birkenau, then go back to Krakow for a dinner that evening, and then the next day take the train back to Germany, and on the train do some more kind of time to reflect and that sort of a thing, and then fly out. So
you
4 or 5 days in total.
You have not talked about this since we were sitting in Santa Monica. You have that, like, that was detailed, man. Like, that's why I was curious. Like, you've got that planned. That's exciting, man. That's a long time sitting there. That might be cool, man. That'd be really cool to see you put that together, man. That's, people have no clue. I could literally do a podcast on Chris and history. Like, the stuff that this guy knows is unbelievable, and it's and his insight and his wisdom. I think that'd be pretty amazing for anyone to go. So at least it's in the universe now on my podcast. They can reach out. It's going to be next year. He's selling tickets. He doesn't know the dates. He doesn't know the price, but reach out to Chris. Anyways, I just want to say thanks, Chris, for coming on the show. And like, legitimately, we could be talking for hours. There's probably hundreds of stories. I feel like we barely touched the surface. This is the first time we've talked in many years as well. So we actually spent about half an hour just chilling, talking, and maybe we should have recorded that, but that was for us. But anyways, I just want to say thanks, Chris, for coming on the show. Honestly, truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.